Now this plate, coat of mercury. Now gold and silver has a affinity for mercury, and they want to combine with one another. So as these little tiny particles of gold are washing across this plate, they're being absorbed into the mercury. And if the mine manager or the mill manager is keeping an eye on this, he'd tell them, well, this is getting pretty well to the end. So they would shut down this bank of stamps. They would come out, they would use a homemade tool, something like this, that would scrape the mercury up into a puddle. And they would take a putty knife, they'd scoop it up, and they would put it into a retort. Somebody's got my display all over the place. So, has anybody recognized the term mad as a hatter? Okay, well, hatters are the people that make hats. They made hats in England, and they were using beaver pelts to make the hats out of. And in order to treat the fur of the beaver, they would rub mercury onto the hat or onto the pelt. The mercury would be absorbed into their fingertips, into their bloodstream, into their brain, and they were crazy. The fur is going to be sealed, and we're going to boil it. Now, it's not going to take very much to boil a metal that's already liquid. So we're going to boil it off, and it's going to go through this tube in a closed system, and it's going to wind up over here in another container.
Like making alcohol.
Like making alcohol. Distilling it.
Sorry. It's good.
And when that is gone, what's going to be left in here is the gold and the silver. This is going to go over to the assay office. It'll be processed, put into little bars, and sent off to the nearest mint. Now,
this was part of the famous Peter Pan Woodland Club that developed Big Bear City. And a gentleman named Harry Kiner was known as the boy who would never grow up. And he was a Peter Pan aficionado who loved all things Peter Pan. So he decided to build a resort much like the Four Seasons or the Ritz that was the place to be. The who's who's of Big Bear stayed at the Peter Pan Woodland Club. This was in the early 1920s. And he built a lodge, a grandeur. It's here she is. Oh, wow. That's located right across the street from Big Bear City Post Office, right over there. We're standing on right around the 8th or the 9th hole of the golf course of that complex. They developed Big Bear City. They sold and subdivided 800 lots and built this beautiful complex as a timeshare, so to speak, an early way of timesharing. And people that bought the lot got a timeshare, and they were able to use the equestrian center, to use the theater, to use the boats, and all of the accoutrements that came with being a member of the Peter Pan Woodland Club. With it, you got some of these lovely leather-bound handbooks that were part of your package. And for a $269 fee, you would get a one-bedroom Maltby home, custom made by Guy Maltby, who was the furniture maker back then. And you would have a home fully turnkey ready to open and move in, including the toothpaste, toothbrush, towels, soap dispensers, everything. It was a turnkey home here in Bear City. And you could use the Peter Pan Woodland Club with all of its perks if you were a member.
For $269?
Yes.
That's
the advertisement.
I'm
standing in front of all of the contracts and the actual contracts of being a Peter Pan Woodland Club member. And they had exclusive rights. They had a chef. This was the bomb. This was the place. Many, many movies were filmed here. Don't Fence Me In with Roy and Dale, where she pushes him into the swimming pool. That was at the Peter Pan Woodland Club. And we have original photos of the development of Big Bear City, all here because this was not developed. Up until the Woodland Club, we had Pan Hot Springs, owned by the Jesserin family, who had natural Pan Hot Spring water coming up out of the ground. And that was the only establishment, and then it burnt down prior to the Woodland Club. So when the Woodland Club was built, this was the only big thing in Bear City. There was a fireplace that you could almost drive a car into. And the andirons for that fireplace are out in front. You guys walked past them when you came in. So this is the Caddyshack that was on the grounds of the Woodland Club, which sits right here in this photo. This street right here is Greenway. The airport field was sagebrush back then. There's two children playing and picking flowers in the picture in the sagebrush on the runway of the airport. Greenway was here, and we moved the Caddyshack over in 2008. The Caddyshack was used to check out your equipment. Your golfing stuff, your tennis stuff, anything you needed to play at the Woodland Club was in this room. So we left the pits in the floor so that you could still see where the cleats were from the golfing shoes. But instead of making it a boring old golf house, we decided to show the development of Big Bear City through photography and furniture. Over on this side, we've got 1920s furniture when Big Bear was opulent and wealthy. People came up here, it was flapper era, 1920s, they had money, they had time to party, and life was great. We move over into the Great Depression, onto the other side, and we notice a decline in the furniture, cheaper furniture, different types of wood. We have two competing furniture companies, the Maltby Company and the Burton Company. Maltby died in the early 40s and left the patent to Burton, and he took over. That's why Big Bear City is filled with homes made out of half logs, because they were part of the Peter Pan Woodland Club complex. Ron lives in a Maltby out here in Bear City. He restored one. This is also called a Maltby. It's the Caddyshack, but it's a Maltby home because Guy Maltby was commissioned by Harry Kiner to develop Big Bear City. And so he, along with his furniture company, built the homes and the furniture to go with them. So on the Depression side of the house, you see lower end furniture. It's still the furniture, but it's nothing compared to the opulence of the 1920s. So back in 1948 in June, the Peter Pan Woodland Club burned to the ground. And there's been controversy about that because at this point, all of their lots had been already subdivided. People had already purchased parts of the timeshare, so these guys were having to fulfill their contract and their agreement even though these people have already paid. And haha, miraculously there's a fire. Now we don't really know the truth, but we all wonder. You know, was there something rotten in Dodge in that department? And we did get a lot of our donations from the Roy Rogers estate when Roy passed away. They donated the vacuum and some of the items. We've got photos on the wall from original newspapers because Roy and Dale owned the Gray's Landing over on the north shore of the lake. Oh, okay. And he would, you know, he was a good man and he would adopt children. I think they had 7 or 8 or 9 kids. And so Roy and Dale would come up here to get out of the heat in Victorville, and he'd flip burgers at Gray's Landing for a day off. So people would come in with their string of fish, and there's Roy Rogers flipping their hamburgers. And we have a picture of him just getting ready to weigh some ladies' fish in 54 on that paper. 55 in the paper. He was weighing out the fish for the shocked people that came in with their limit of fish. Roy Rogers was helping them out. So this is the Caddyshack, which was part of one of the biggest, most premier resorts in Big Bear.
All cabins around Juniper Point that they would rent out. It was also the only filling station for many years on North Shore and the Middaloosa Post Office. We brought this building in 7 years ago. And what a deal, we get a free building. Well, $100,000 later, here we are. The building sat out the other side of the teepee here for about, well, since 99 or 09.
09.
And last year we poured a foundation here, and then first thing this spring we rolled the building from there to here on big pieces of pipe. It just rolled along the ground like a tank, rolled it up on top of the foundation, and we began the restoration of it. As it comes to find out, we would have been better off to have taken the exterior walls, the interior walls, put them in a pile over at the property and burned it and brought the truckload of wood over here and rebuilt it, because this building went clear down to the bare studs and further. This is a single wall constructed building. The board and bat on the outside was the wall, but there were no studs. The only vertical pieces in the wall were the outside wall and the 2 boards that would hold up the windows all the way around. The rest of the wall is all hollow.
Nice cool breeze out.
Now, We know that there was no interior originally on this building because when we started taking the building apart, they had insulated the walls with newspaper and old cardboard and old advertisements, any old magazines, anything they could find. They even rolled the stuff up into little balls and stuck it between the cracks of the board and bat. And it was all nailed from the inside to the outside wall. And then this interior was probably put on in 1936, judging from the date of all the newspapers. The contractor and I had an agreement that he would destroy as little as possible of the interior of the building, including the ceiling, which is hard to replace in like kind. But the building department, in its omnipotence, knowing better that the old wooden trusses up there would not hold a 60-pound snow load after 100 years, wanted us to put a 60-pound snow load roof on this building. We had to take it clear down to the ceiling joists, which are just 2x4s, and take everything else off and then put brand new trusses on top of it. Each of the ceiling joists has a new truss that was bolted right up next to it, so that all of this is being supported by the original roof roof joists. It is our mission and vision to reopen this as a country store.
Building is going to be post office. We have the original postal desk over there, and we also have some post office boxes that Ron is working on right now that's pulled away from the building. And your Rim of the World volunteer, Tara Gann, came up with an absolutely amazing fundraiser for us, and we are now adopting out our post office boxes in the amount of $250 to have your name, as it were a post office, on each one of those glass doors as a fundraiser to help recover some of the $70,000 that it costs to restore this cabin. They will be in perpetuity, and so we've opened it to members only, and only 135 people will have the opportunity to have their name etched on those, well, not etched on the glass, but on a tag on those post offices forever. And we felt like it was appropriate for our members because this is a free organization. We work very hard, and our volunteers give up a lot of their lives for us and for our community, and we feel like they deserve to have the opportunity to be a part of this really special exhibit. It was, like Ron said, it was brought over in 2009. We watched it swinging on the back of the crane all the way down Big Bear Boulevard at 3 o'clock in the morning. We only lost one window, which is delightful. You can see that we have the original glazing on the windows. We've had some spectacular help come in and restore this place. They have done a superb job, and by going from the outside in, as costly as it was, proved perfect because we have all the original knotty pine that very likely came from the lake to begin with. So this will be a general store and post office circa about 1923. Between 1919 and 1940, 1945 is our era of when this would have been working. We love the original countertop pine. To see wide pine planks this long is extinct at this point. And it really reminds us very much of the Little House on the Prairie store. That's what I keep going back to in my head, is what this is going to look like. We're going to have a sundries department and food, and it's going to look just as if you walked back to 1919 and could visit the Juniper Point store and post office. So it's a special, it was the last building that my late husband brought over. So this is really, really important to me, as it is with Ron and his family, that we have to finish something that is highly expected of us, and if it's not platinum, it's not going to happen. So we're going to open next season with the most amazing, beautiful exhibit, the Juniper Point. So we're very, very proud of this.